I should say good morning and good afternoon because I've just arrived this morning from Washington, D.C., so I'm a bit jet lagged at this point, so please bear with me. I am here to talk to you about ProjectConnect, and before I begin and talk about ProjectConnect, I wanted to share with you the fact that we actually have students that are online right now from North Carolina in a small town called Jacksonville, North Carolina, that are willing and ready to engage with you. So as I'm going through this presentation, do think about some questions that you might have, and they have a class full of about 25 pupils that are ready to answer any of your questions. They're aware that this presentation is going on right now. So feel free to write down any questions or interject, and I'm able to communicate with them and they'll respond back to you. Okay, I'm just going to skip ahead with these quotes. So before I begin, as Andy said, I started the first mobile learning conference in the U.S. in February of this year, which was an exciting event, and it was long overdue, Andy, I will say, very long overdue. And we were very pleased with the outcome. We were very pleased with what we've learned, and I'm able to sit here and talk to you about the definition of a mobile learning from both a theoretical perspective as well as one from a practitioner's perspective. I will tell you that from my experience, while the name of this conference is Handheld Learning, mobile learning itself, to me as a practitioner, is more about ubiquitous access. It is about connectivity. So I put several devices on the table here. I have my smartphone, I have an Nintendo DSi that can get internet access, I have a tablet over here, and of course I have my laptop. And the thing that we have found, whether it be through my project in the United States or other projects around the world, is the critical success factor for most of these students where we're seeing increases as far as academic achievement results are concerned has been because they've had the connectivity. So while we talk about in school systems the debate over should it be the Dell Latitude, should it be the MacBook Pro, should it be the Intel Classmate, should it be a smartphone, should it be a gaming device, that's all interesting unto itself, but ultimately these students aspire and want to have that connectivity. And this is, by the way, our instant messenger, so you might see students pinging me as I'm going through this presentation. Okay, so I'm going to tell you why we embarked upon ProjectConnect in the US, and then I'll go into specifically what it is. We conducted a needs assessment, and the needs assessment really focused upon three core areas. The first area was on the math and science skills deficit. The second area was on 21st century skills, which is an overly used term in my opinion. And the third was on access, or the digital divide. And without going into too many of these slides, because I could do this presentation over a 2-hour period, and I'm trying to condense it down to a 20-minute span, without going into too much detail, these are some of the trends as far as the US is concerned. And there is a test that's conducted through the OECD which looks at where students are benchmarked against other countries as far as their math and science competencies are concerned. So let me just ask a question. In the United States, and I hope you guys don't have the perception that we're all smart people in the US, because we certainly are not. In the United States, among all the OECD countries, for 8th grade math proficiency, where do you think the US is ranked? And you're not allowed to answer, Richard. No US citizens are allowed to answer this question. So say there's a list of 30 countries, where's the US in terms of its 8th grade? What is it? 10th? 20th. 28. Yeah, see, I know that guy. He's above the UK. 23rd. Let's see, where's the UK on here? We'll have to come back. Yeah, you guys aren't on the list. No, you're there. You're there somewhere. You're there somewhere. Okay, so we looked specifically at areas related to the math and science skills deficit, and we wanted to know in particular why students felt so disengaged in the math and science fields. Because ultimately, when you look at math and science as core curricular areas, if you don't emphasize those key skill sets, it's going to have a negative impact on economic development and going forward. So if you looked at some of those statistics that I came out with, and we all know this concept of the types of jobs in the future and job readiness and 21st century skills development. Ultimately, if you want to become a computer programmer, a software developer, a multimedia designer, a doctor, a scientist, etc., you need to have those basic math foundation skills. But ultimately what's happening, not only in the US but around the world, students are becoming more and more and more disengaged in these fields. So my organization, in partnership with the US Department of Education, went out and we did a research project. And we said to students, in particular, why do you feel so disengaged in math and science, and how can technology play a role to facilitate getting you interested in those fields again? And they came back to us and they said, well, first of all, we're disinterested in math and science because it's too abstract. So the example that I like to use over and over again is they came to me and said, when in the world am I going to use the Pythagorean theorem in my life? Okay? So anybody in this room, can anybody in this room apply the Pythagorean theorem in a real world application? Back there. You have to, I'm sorry, speak up? There you go. Okay. So we've got, so how, okay, you don't have to give me an answer. How many of you can raise your hand today and confidently show me the application to the Pythagorean theorem in the real world? Okay, look at this room. Look around you people. All right. So this is something that's happening with these students. They're constantly asking, how do I apply these various concepts? How do I apply polynomials? How do I apply monomials ultimately in a real-world context? And then they told us that they wanted to, more specifically, use manipulatives. They wanted more hands-on type access. The next thing that came up was they wanted to take advantage of social networking technologies. Most schools ban access to any form of social networking technology. In fact, our great bright president from before, not now, from before, so you guys know where I sit, actually talked about the concept of doing a full wide ban on social networking technologies in schools, which no longer is that the new pathway with our new president. But leaving that aside for a second, students said that they wanted to be able to have those communication and collaboration tools from which to work together with one another. Finally, one of the most important points that they brought up was they wanted to utilize, and we gave them some, it looks similar to this. There was a game device, there was a laptop, there were smartphones, there was an iPod. We said, which device ultimately would you pick? And 90% of the students that we polled with, and there were 300 in the DC metropolitan, Washington, DC metropolitan area, said the smartphone. And I was surprised, I was floored, because I'm ex-Apple. I used to run part of the education division for Apple, and I said, are you kidding me? You want to use this over, you know, and I think I had a nice iBook at the time, this beautiful iBook? And they said, yeah. And I said, why do you want to use that? And they said, because it fits, and it can go in our pocket. We can always have access to our resources, and you have the assumption as administrators or as adults that when we leave the school, we're going to have the internet access at home. And we all don't have internet access at home. We don't. And if we have internet access at home, we potentially are having to share it amongst 3 or 4 or 5 people. And it's very, very slow. So that's really, honestly, what brought together the whole concept of ProjectConnect. And I'm not going to go into all these fun statistics because I'm sure you're going to hear all of these little fun statistics throughout the next few days, but I will point out one thing, and this to me is both a comic moment and also a very sad moment. The first bullet point up there. 84% of students surveyed would rather do one of the following than their math homework: clean their room, eat their vegetables, go to the dentist, or take out their garbage. And I have to tell you, I've trained now over 600 students on my project. Every time I walk in the room, I'll ask the students, okay, how many of you would say, you know, you'd rather go to the dentist than do your math homework? And it's usually about 50% that would go to the dentist. Okay, so we're going to just move on here. These are all things that, again, you've seen before. ProjectConnect. ProjectConnect, just so you know, was a initiative that was funded by Qualcomm. Everybody familiar with Qualcomm? Who Qualcomm is? Okay, Qualcomm's kind of like the Intel for the cellular company. So, you know, when you hear the the Intel commercials, you hear ding, 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 ding. Well, Qualcomm should come up with their own song too. There's usually a Qualcomm chip inside most of the CDMA devices, not necessarily the GSM devices that are over here. They funded our project based upon the fact that they were looking to provide support for an academic-related initiative that would provide broadband access services to underserved communities. And while I was going through all this research in terms of this needs assessment, we'll just say the stars were aligned, and ultimately we were brought together and they funded the project inside the state of North Carolina. ProjectConnect involves today 200 students. We're in our third year of implementation. We focused initially upon Algebra 1 students in 9th grade. They were socioeconomically disadvantaged students, meaning that gross family incomes were probably less than approximately $30,000 US per year. Most of the students had limited internet access capabilities, and most of the students were average or below average performing students as far as Algebra 1 was concerned. We gave specific classes these smartphones. So initially it wasn't this model, but this is the model they have now, which I still can't believe that we hand these over to the students. We gave the students, it was the 6800, so the device that was below this. This is an HTC Touch Pro device. We gave each of the students these devices, so there were dedicated what are called K-Nect classrooms, and there still are dedicated K-Nect classrooms. So you would find in one particular school, for example, one Algebra 1 class with, one class, Algebra 1, with 25 of these devices. And the teacher then had the responsibility of basically taking the device and integrating the device as part of their curriculum. Now that's a big statement. Asking a teacher basically to take a handheld device, a cell phone nevertheless, and try to integrate it within their curriculum. So I will tell you, the first thing that we did is we focused upon using what it looks like, but let me show you a little quick video and show you what the project looks like very fast.
Rob Holliday has the story from Onslow County.
Okay guys, you need to be taking out your phones.
What was that? This is a high school algebra class. No way we heard that correctly.
Okay guys, you need to be taking out your phones.
Not only get out your phones, but turn them on and use them right there in front of the teacher. While they may seem like they're pushing classroom decorum backward, these high-tech phones are actually helping these 9th grade algebra students make some serious progress at Jacksonville's Southwest Onslow High School.
Anytime you can put technology in the hands of students, you're going to build their success, you're going to build their academic knowledge. They're used to having a cell phone in their hands. They are used to being able to message their peers, and now we're letting them do it academically.
Go back to where you were.
The project kicked off with the start of the spring semester, and it's transformed the way the students are learning.
I was actually ecstatic because I'm not very good at math, and this really will help me to become better at it, because math's always been a real challenge for me, especially word problems.
Which Megan McAllister and her classmates now solve with the help of their smartphones, which also allow students to wirelessly use the internet. As part of their lesson plans, the students visit a website to download math problems, then work to solve them.
After they read the problem set and they start to solve it, they have areas on the phone using the keypad that's on the phone where they will actually type in, this is how you solve the problem, and this is the solution that I got.
Remember what you have to do at this point.
In one of the class's recent exercises, they needed to calculate how a runner's age would impact the amount of time it...
Do you love the accent, by the way? I always make fun of her for that. All right, so let me close out this video and come back. I just thought it's better for you to actually see it versus me sitting here talking about it in the classroom. So just so you know, ProjectConnect encompasses really two core components. One is the teacher portal, and under the teacher portal, the teacher has the capability of pushing out specific problem sets, and we actually had to design all of our own content, because when we started this project back in 2006, 2007, there weren't many devices ultimately that, there weren't many devices ultimately that supported the type of content that we needed to push out over to the device. So we developed a set of problem sets that were based around algebra, and then we actually went on and we built problem sets for geometry, we built problem sets for biology, we built problem sets for calculus, now we build problem sets for Algebra 2. In any event, the teacher has the ability to push out over the air the problem sets to each of the students' devices. A teacher has an assessment tool that they push out over to the students' devices, and then the student obviously picks up on their device all of these various resources. We incorporated a social networking system that allows the students to create their own videos. The students upload videos of themselves demonstrating proficiency achieved for a given problem, or if they run into a specific issue, they will actually go ahead and create a video. And I know I'm running out of time, but I got to show you this. And I came all the way over here from Washington, D.C. There's my little buffer, I hope. Andy?
This is group 5, and I'm Ginger, I'm Kayla, and I'm Victoria.
So I'm just pulling it up very quickly because I know I got to move here on my presentation. Students actually work in project-based environments where they'll work together and they'll form videos, or 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock will come, and the students actually will go about and create a video where they are expressing an issue that they're having because they're not able to achieve proficiency. Other students will see this posted in the blogs and then comment back with their own videos and show the students how to achieve proficiency within it. So we're creating more of a peer-to-peer based support system versus having the dependency be either A, upon the parent or caretaker, or B, upon the teacher themselves. But be not mistaken, our teachers do make themselves available after hours, and there are some that like this and some that don't like this. Nevertheless, our teachers do try to make themselves available in the after hours, and they're able to communicate with them via instant messaging. All right, I'm moving on, I promise. Moving on, okay. This is what the device was. And I was going to show you all this fun stuff. All right, the net of this is, first of all, a question comes up constantly, and that is, how do you ultimately ensure that students are abiding by acceptable use policies? We have a system up here that you're looking at right now that allows me to monitor all the devices in the program and actually allows me to turn on and turn off various services of the device. So the classes now actually that are sitting in North Carolina, I'm able to actually turn all their phones off from where I'm standing right now. I'm able to send messages out to all the students across their phones, or I'm able to turn off text messaging or whatever application is that I want to turn on or turn off. I'm able to remote into the device and see exactly what they're doing on the device without the student's knowledge. And while this may sound a little creepy, ultimately we know that content filters are not the end-all be-all in terms of ensuring that students will abide by acceptable use policies. And we had to be very, 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 very careful about this because this project really was one of the first of its kind in the US. And any negative publicity that we would have possibly had from the project, and we haven't had any over 3 years, it's all been positive, would have killed the project. One incident, a New York Times or a Washington Post or whatnot would have gotten a hold of, had something negative happen, it would have killed all of the results of our project. So what is the net of what happened here? And I'm going to wrap up now. We had a third-party researcher come in, and our researcher now has been following our project for 3 years. Our first year implementation, 3 out of our 4 cohorts outperformed the other Algebra 1 classes taught by the same teacher. And that was for what's called the North Carolina End of Course exam, which is a state-administered exam. As far as their grades were concerned, all 4 cohorts outperformed the other classes. Going into our next year, all of our cohorts, and we had more, I think we had 9 cohorts in the 2008-2009 school year, all of our cohorts outperformed the other classes, and that was for algebra, geometry, biology, and Algebra 2. Okay, so people always say to me, what next? You know, what's going on with this project, Shawn? What are you going to do with it? We are now expanding the project in the state of North Carolina to the point where we're going to be deploying, instead of the smartphones, the school system wants to deploy something similar to this with integrated cellular chips inside of it. So they're going to have the 3G broadband wireless capabilities inside the netbooks, but we're also going to continue to utilize and monitor the cohort that has the smartphones as well. So with that, I'm going to stop now because these guys are getting very...
We're not at all, Shawn. Shawn has come a long way. He is here for the duration. He's certainly here tomorrow anyhow, that I'm aware of.
Till Thursday.
Do grab and have a look. It's really interesting. The US, as I said, I keep on compare and contrast to the US. It's really interesting to look at how different models are appearing in different parts of the world. The US is one situation. Canada is another one, very interesting. If you look at Canada, Canada's very hot on privacy, very hot on e-safety. A lot of stuff going on in Canada now that's well worth having a look at. What's interesting about Shawn is he's bringing that thing, Qualcomm power the world's mobile phones. That's what he said. They make Intel look like a pussycat in terms of the penetration to the market.